Thrilled to introduce tonight's program with artist Marnie Weber. A leading figure in the Los Angeles art scene, Weber creates artworks of strange, sometimes unsettling beauty that place women in positions of power. Her multidisciplinary practice encompasses performance, film, video, sculpture, collage, music, and costuming. Through her own mythology, Weber forms uncanny worlds that invite viewers into an exploration of the subconscious. Tonight's program will begin with a presentation by Weber. Afterwards, she'll be joined in conversation with MOCA Associate Curator Rebecca Lowery. This conversation is marked by the launch of andSons MOCA X andSons Chocolatiers, a series of chocolate boxes featuring works from MOCA's world-renowned collection. The debut box showcases Marnie Weber's The Spirit Bear, one of 11 works by Weber currently in MOCA's collection. After the conversation, I hope you'll join us outside for a reception where you'll have the opportunity to taste and purchase these incredible chocolates. Proceeds from each box directly benefit MOCA's mission, programs, and collection. Lastly, I want to thank Gavlak Gallery and Mark Kovitz from andSons for collaborating on this project, as well as the MOCA Thrive Fund, courtesy of Chara Schreier, for supporting this evening's conversation. And now, please join me in welcoming MOCA collection artist, the one and only Marnie Weber.
Hi, so happy to see everybody. Thanks for braving the traffic and coming out to be here today. I want to thank MOCA and andSons Chocolates for getting this whole thing together. It's really exciting for me because MOCA's been in my world for so many years, decades in fact. Many of my friends have shown here. Many of my friends have worked here. In fact, I worked here as a preparator 26 years ago, installing a lot of significant shows, including the Keenholz show. And it's delightful to have my work in the collection, and now it's even more special to be on a chocolate box. So it's thrilling. So I hope that you all would like to buy one and support MOCA's programming further. I'm going to talk about a half hour, give you a little background on my life, where I came from, the different mediums I work in, the music, the sculpture, the installation, the performance. And the question that I get most often asked is, where do your ideas come from? So I hope that I'll be able to answer that question and hopefully inspire us all to be more open to ideas and to quell our inner critic, and so to let those ideas come forward. So this is the Spirit Bear we're going to start with, and this is in the collection. You can see this is a spirit girl on the shield. That I'm going to talk a bit more about that conceptual art rock band that I created. And it's a very tall bear on wheels. And I think of these sculptures as giant toys. So we're going to go back in time to where I came from. I came from Easton, Connecticut, a small rural town out in the country. We had 2 yards of woods, backyards to play in, and we lived on Center Road, and it was a good fortune to have many parades go by the house. The parades have created a lifelong obsession of mine to costume as many people as possible and to make them go in a procession. Here's an early Halloween procession that we did. I think that trick-or-treating was very difficult because the houses were so far apart that this was sort of our version of trick-or-treating. I love that it's the children's first chance to have their alter ego come out and to try to explore their own personalities and to come across. I love the homemade costumes. You've got a Christmas tree in the background and Scarecrow and then Santa Claus, and then there's a Sheik, my brother, and some army men. They're always classic. There's me as the princess, which is basically just a bunch of piled on rags and material. I was transported from that bucolic setting in rural Connecticut to Taiwan. My father was an Asian art historian who specialized in ancient Chinese bronzes from the Zhou period, which is 2000 BC, 500 BC. And we lived next to these train tracks in Shilin, Taiwan. And at that time, the trains were actual steam engines, so you would understand the metaphor of the train being a beast because they would chug, chug, chug really very loudly, and in fact, the wall was our backyard. There's me in bed in Taiwan, and this foreshadows my lifelong love of music and clowns. I have a clown lamp right there. And then under the bed are the monsters that you can't see, but I certainly could see them. We went all over Asia for about a year. Here I am in Nara Park feeding the deer, and these are the spirit houses. I bring this picture in because I grew up thinking that the spirit world and the material world were as one, and perhaps that came from my father working on these ritualistic bronze vessels where the family would feast with the departed, and then here are some Japanese spirit houses for the spirits to reside. And so that was when I've decided, later on I decided that I think that my spirit totems and my spirit sculptures were very much influenced by growing up with this thought of the two different dualities of worlds. Then, as a late teen, I moved downtown when I was going to USC, and my father was teaching there, and I met up with a group of artists who were living downtown on 7th and Central, and we formed a sort of ad hoc band and decided that we were better than we probably were. So we went up and down 7th and Central asking the different bar owners if they would let us play for free. And this one place, Jacaranda, said you could play for free if you build a stage. So we went in there and built a stage, and it became quite a center place for the small downtown art crowd to come and hang out. Over the years, we played many different places. There's Jacaranda's on a good night down at the bottom. The fellow band members, we had the good fortune of playing many different places besides Los Angeles, New York, Danceteria, Pyramid Club. We went to London and played some clubs there. The originating location, Jacaranda's, is down in the bottom right. It grew to be a little bit difficult because they brought in strippers, and then they decided that Marnie should be nude and Gillian should be nude. And so then we decided that they didn't quite get our concepts of the band. And so we moved over to Al's Bar, where we talked Mark Kreisel into, again, letting us build a stage and playing for free. So Al's Bar was born, and we set our goals pretty high in those days. Here I am. I'm at this point. I had switched over to UCLA because I wanted to study with Chris Bird, and he was teaching performance, and I thought that would be a really exciting place to study. And so I met a fellow student, Bruce Leitcher from Independent Projects Records. He was making his own small run edition records of about 500 for a Chris Burden project class, independent project. And he liked the band, and so he suggested we do an edition of 500 records on his letterpress, each one with a different color. So this was what was the beginning of my love of special edition, small-run records, handmade art objects that weren't mass-produced, but were actually art in themselves. The band eventually broke up, and I started a solo career. This is 1980s in the performance heyday in downtown Los Angeles, and I started to have friends who offered to let me take over their space and to do small performances there. And so they got quite theatrical. This is the very first one. I quickly realized that I felt much more comfortable in costume as my backup singers and dancers were. And I decided to create a bunch of different characters. This one's Joe a deer, a female deer. And She's 12 feet tall, and I costumed the rest of the musicians, and we played on top of my 40-minute pre-recorded background taped music, and then there was also ad hoc dialogue between the performers in sort of existentialist kind of lost format. This is Coquette Circus Girl. She impales herself through a stuffed pony. Here's Coquette with a clown musician. Yes, that is a child's wading pool. Here's a little clip of Coquette singing. Oh, I guess we're going to need the volume. You can see quite a few songs about loss and mourning. Here I am performing as an old woman looking back on her life, growing younger as she performs into a young pop star. A flower, a bunny, all kinds of animal, forest creatures. And at the same time, I wanted to do a solo record. This is Joe Adair Downtown again. I had moved back downtown and went over to Bruce's Independent Project Records and did my letterpress version of Songs Hurt Me. Each album had a different cover, a different collage cover. There were 100. And then I exhibited them all together. And then I did it with my second record, Woman with Bass. It was more of a book format. Another 100. And I was finding all of these men's skin magazines downtown Los Angeles, and I wanted to make the women have a new life and make them more about figurative work and natural scenes than about the origin they came from. So there was 100 of these as well, and it was a real boot camp for collage making. I began to realize that collages really have to feel like you're walking in on a moment of time, like almost a mini narrative. And it wasn't just about putting a bunch of cutouts together that look good. It was more about telling us a tale. Here's a box set with a variety of things that you can get inside. And these collages were around 4 inches by 6 inches. And one of them, by happenstance, ended up as the Thousand Leaves Sonic Youth cover. That's me in bed again, looking petrified. And that was a really happy thing that happened. They just happened to see my work and chose that one. And then I did some more Sonic Youth posters for their show. Now we fast forward to the most recent show of records, and that was in the fall. This is a soundtrack for Day of Forevermore. There was 200. Each one is a different collage, painted decalcomania, surrealist style, and then they were exhibited all together at Odd Arc in Highland Park. Here, and the record is red. I like the fact that people can buy a piece of art and they can frame it and hang it on their wall, but it's also music and it's affordable. I allowed myself 10 to 15 minutes on each collage, drawing from my artist's morgue of images that had already been cut out, and paint. Once everything had been painted, that was my limit, was 10 to 15 minutes. So I was quite happy with this project, and I probably will continue to do small run special edition records into the future. At the same time, I was also making Super 8 films. I like to just delve into any kind of medium I've never tried with open eyes and a sense of adventure. And this is Destiny and her blow-up friends, shot at the Salton Sea. lot of my collages actually serve more as vision boards or storyboards for what's to come. I made this collage and I thought it would be so interesting to do a hybrid of Little Red Riding Hood, who becomes a nurse and rescues different animals throughout the forest who have problems. And so she comes across a snowman who is bleeding and a rabbit with problems and a blind mouse, and eventually tries to help them, but they really were just hypochondriacs. Over the years, maybe 7 years of performing by myself, but with other musicians, I wanted to do something that was more of a band, and so I thought it would be interesting. In the 70s, I grew up seeing a lot of theatrical rock bands, and they were all pretty much men. They were like Genesis and Bowie and a lot of the different costuming bands of Black Sabbath, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Jethro Tull. And I thought it was such a shame that I didn't get to see any female progressive rock theatrical bands. And so I thought, well, I'll create one with a bunch of girls who've died and weren't able to come back and actually be in the band. So this was born the Spirit Girls. And my first performance with the Spirit Girls was a rock opera. It was at Luckman College, and I did all the stage sets and, again, backing music with live music on top. The classic dead girl coming out of the graveyard kind of look. Dancers with teddy bears, dancers with umbrellas. And here's a short clip of the end. Had many, many adventures. Here's the lead spirit girl running away on a rooster. The spirit girl's at a picnic. The spirit girl's teaming up with some crazy clowns. Over the course of the spirit girls growing out of the haystacks. The spirit girls had about 4 or 5 films. It went on for about 5 or 6 years, but that's the beauty of being a spirit. You never really die. Here's the lead spirit girl who got tired of being the lead spirit girl and ran away from the others and joined a circus act channeling spirits live on stage. That was inspired by the spiritualist movement of 1890 in America, and I thought it was interesting. It just started as an idea, how it was one of the early forms of performance where women were given a voice on stage. And so that was just that one idea bore this whole movie. Here's the lead spirit girl runs away again and becomes a scarecrow, kind of a Scooby-Doo mask under mask thing. The lead spirit girl gets sick of the circus and just burns it up. The way I do some of these collages, it's an actual diorama. I made a small circus tent and then lit it on fire, and then the figures are collaged later on top. The Spirit Girls never really had a voice in any of the films, and I decided that it would be time. And the best way to speak is through a ventriloquist doll, obviously. So I created up doppelgangers of each spirit girl, and they were actual working ventriloquist dolls. And so on the Spirit Girl film, they were finally given a voice, and all that came out were barroom jokes and some profound philosophical musings. Here they are exhibited on the wall in London. They're quite large, bigger than life size, in fact. And here's the bit of the movie. Here's some of the cohorts. Dirty Bunny on Log Lady. Grief Pig. Some of the other animals. These giant toys. The actual foam comes from taxidermy companies that sell these for skins. And then the Magisculpt accoutrements are added to the sculptures, and then everything's resined and painted and put on bases and put on wheels. And I think that idea came from when I was actually working at MOCA, and I thought to myself, why don't these artists put these giant sculptures on wheels? So here's the spirit horse with the spirit girl saddle. This is my all-time favorite artwork I've ever done. It's Giggles of Clowns. And the idea came from, I was reading one day, if a clown dies, all the other clowns, out of a show of respect, come to the funeral in their clown costumes. And so I thought this would be a great way to put the resting place of the lead spirit girl. And then this is her group of friends. And this was shown, this is in the MOCA collection, and these photographs were taken at MOCA. And the soundtrack that you don't hear now, but it's clowns laughing and crying. You know, when you laugh so hard, you start crying. That's what the soundtrack is. And then the sculpture elements are fake flowers dipped in resin and made hard, so it's archival and permanent. And I was thinking to myself, growing up in the nature of Connecticut with the giant trees and the lilac bushes and all the different flowers and the autumn colors and the leaves, and then moving to Los Angeles, my seasons in nature changed mostly by going through Michael's and seeing artificial recreations of the seasons. And so I really embraced and fell in love with the idea of fake nature. The artist clown, Birdo, hobo clown, stay-at-home clown. And then after the lead spirit girls die, here are all the clowns feeling lost and going over the waterfall. Metaphorically, they don't know what to do without their leader. This is a bear that Mike Kelly donated to the museum along with a Johanna Wendt costume. And this is very significant to me because knowing Mike over the years, he placed value on the costumes, the music, the drawings, the paintings, the sculptures, the films, and I felt that he always gave equal weight to each medium, and that's something I've tried to do in my work and not placed importance over any of the mediums. Now, the 2010s we're getting into, and these are monsters that I co-created with the students at Cal Arts, CISA students, in fact, and we shot a film there. And this is a procession collage that inspired the idea. My hometown graveyard, by the way. And then here's a short clip of the procession. had the good fortune of working with West of Rome to show this film and to do a Spirit Girls performance at a mausoleum in Altadena called the Mountain View Mausoleum and Cemetery. And I've had a lot of really exciting things happen when I just say yes to things that are presented to me in unusual places. And it was a wonderful, amazing evening. The Spirit Girls got to perform alongside the Crips. We really rocked the dead that night. And the whole cemetery was at our disposal. I had figures popping up behind gravestones. And it's funny how the gravestones end up looking like a movie set. And then I had 5 grave diggers who walked the audience through the cemetery with scripted text reading a different history of people who were buried at the graveyard. And then upstairs in the mausoleum, collages and more figures. The collages were based from photographs I took at different cemeteries all over my travels. This was another opportunity to do something on the fly. I call it guerrilla installation. I had 2 weeks in Lille, France, to do a bedroom of the lead spirit girl. And so I sent my characters there, and she is represented by a resuscitation dummy because so often people kept asking me to resuscitate the spirit girls. It seemed appropriate. And then we painted and created a very kind of spooky space with collages and video projections. And you'll notice a lot of the cohorts and fellow character actors always seem kind of lost and have problems. And I still haven't quite gotten to the bottom of that. This is this group of monsters has had 3 or 4 reiterations with boats from different countries. This one was in France, all the monsters in Happy-Go-Lucky boat, and they actually made it to Venice recently. I'll show pictures of that. Here's a close-up, the leader, again, my alter ego with the monsters. This was a fun project I did in Pittsburgh. I was given this space. I chose it, actually. I sent my heads from Los Angeles, and I went running through thrift stores, a ghost train, running through thrift stores, gathering handmade things that people had cast off, and I made these sort of spirit totems of spirits that were about to enter the ghost trains. A tremendous amount of beautiful handwork creations that I kludged together, and then after it was over, after the run of maybe 6 months, then everything went back to the thrift store. Here I am with yet another group of monsters. Jack Black commissioned me 21 monsters to perform at Festival Supreme at the Shrine. And so I created these 7-foot-tall monsters. They're actually on bicycle helmets on top of people's heads, and the shoulders are just fake foam. So they're very, very tall. That was the only thing he asked for, was to make them tall. And then Spirit Girls got to perform. And there's Jack with his monsters, looking very happy. Here's the monsters about to go and watch Tenacious D. This was in Geneva Museum of Contemporary Art at my survey show. I was given 10 rooms to do whatever I wanted in the 10 different rooms. And then part of my challenge is always, how do you create a large installation without shipping? And so I've learned over time to make these skeletal sort of backdrop houses. This was a barn and a saloon, and I would create a soundtrack of clowns laughing and getting drunk in the saloon, and there would be projections of films. And so each room had a different character and a different stage set. This is the campfire song room. This is the ventriloquist dolls in a bar room this time. And then now we're moving closer into a big, big project I did. This was the Spirit Girls I've left behind, and these are the witch phase. I play the old lead witch. My daughter Colette plays the young witch, and this is a tableau vivant that starts off the whole film. It comes to life, and the characters slowly start moving. And then we shot it up at Zorthian Ranch in Altadena, and there I am as the old witch and my daughter peeking out from behind. Each location I treated as another stage set and brought truckloads and truckloads of just my stuff that I had at the studio. And here's another shot of the scarecrow scene. Luna teaching the birds how to fly. Some of the different boats were there, and I brought a boat, of course. The witches at the bar scene. The lead witch, played by me, is a character who wants to leave behind the coven after working 400 years taking care of everybody. She slowly descends into alcoholism and madness, and the witches are trying to figure out how to get rid of her and to convince Luna to take over the whole mess. Spirit Girls had a cameo in the movie. This is Luna making the big decision whether or not she's going to take over the whole ranch and all of the monsters. As you can see, everything became more and more elaborate with larger and larger crews. And after I watched the movie, I realized that my subconscious had actually set up the situation that Colette was playing myself as a younger child, and I was playing my mother. So that's part of the question, where do ideas come from? The subconscious is just waiting to escape in terms of giving you dreams or movies. And if you just sort of step aside, it will teach you things that you weren't really even aware of. Now we're in the COVID period. This is the first area of the time of the lockdown where it was very stressful, and I was given a chance to show the Busan Biennial, but I still had a deadline, and the beaches were closed. And so I finally rented a backdrop when the company opened up, the backdrop company, and put the sand in, and then finished up the bird costumes. And this is the story of an old sea hag. You think after maybe making 10 different old ladies, I'd run out of different archetypes, but no, they keep coming. So this is the sea hag. She lives in an old cottage by the sea, and the birds disrupt her solitude. Here's the cottage. This was in Michigan. And then here's a little bit of This is how the birds were displayed in South Korea and Busan. Again, another shipping challenge, so they created the cottage there. This is the most recent movie I've done, and perhaps one of the ones that I'm the most proud of. It's another old lady, but she's a crone. She's an artist who lives alone in a cottage in Lake Arrowhead. We had a cottage up there, and one day a mysterious monkey comes and she befriends him. She's an artist, plein air painter, paints in any season, winter, summer, spring, fall. And the film goes across the seasons. It was shot over a year. And also a lot of my cameras are the security cameras. So throughout the film, there's animals that appear in the film. And by this point, you're thinking, oh, I really would love to see some of these films full length. And so go to my website, marnieweber.com, and for this special event, for quite another month or so, I'll leave all my films up free to watch. Here's the monkey. And it turns out, again, my subconscious didn't really tell me until it was over, that this is my inner critic. So don't listen to the monkey. A mysterious moth comes and takes away the old lady. During about halfway into the pandemic, we moved to Milford, Connecticut. I wanted to get back to my Connecticut roots and to spend some time making work in isolation and be closer to our daughter. And this is the first collage that I made in Milford. We lived near the coast, and it's a welcoming springtime. And I think it's a bit symbolic because suddenly I didn't have to go to Michael's for my nature anymore. Some more of the seasons. A lot of this, 3 months ago, I had a survey show of all of my collages, not all of them, a small section of collages over the last 30 years in Texas. And here's a few of the shots. You get some of the early naked women collages. Some of the Spirit Girl collages, and now we are current. This was about 3 weeks ago in Venice, Italy, associated next to the Venice Biennale, in a project space next to the Arsenal, and it's still up all through July if anyone gets to go there. And the monsters traveled from London to be there. And a lot of artists like to preserve the integrity of the very first time you've ever seen an artwork rather than split it up. But I think of them more as characters in a play, and they go and they have different reiterations of their life journey and the sort of an existential play that they can go through. So here's some of the monsters with the collages. Close up. The actual space was the collector collected furniture, antiques. And so in one day, after just getting off of the plane, I had help. We set up this whole room with the monsters and some of the collages on easels, and one of those ventriloquist dolls. I was very, very happy. I love it when I get to do a guerrilla install. Okay, now here we are with the MOCA teens. Do we have any MOCA teens here? Yay! I wanted to say a little bit about MOCA teens. I taught MOCA teens maybe 10 years ago. Here, it's a work program for juniors and seniors in high school where they apply and they get to work with a exhibiting artist and learn the ins and outs of the museum as well as get paid. This is the project I did with them, the spirit totem vessels. We worked on them, different piñata shops. We gathered stuff all over downtown and made them down in Korea, down in Little Tokyo. And so then, to my delight, there was no truck available, so we got to make a parade. So we put them all on the gurney, the four-wheel dollies that the museum had, and paraded them all the way up to their landing place, which is right outside the door here. It was a really fun, successful project, and so many of the teens got so much out of it. I was very thrilled. There's another shot. Now, here we are back in Milford. This is the last picture. I think that the MOCA teen experience sat in my brain for a decade. And then I thought it would be really amazing to do a grand parade of all the characters and all the different archetypes, the monsters, the clowns, the fairies, the animals. And so I've started on this sort of opus, and I don't know how many years or even decades it will take, but I am currently starting this in my studio in Milford, Connecticut, and it will be on wheels as well. So I guess I'm going to talk to Rebecca now. I think we have one more picture. There. And we're going to talk, and I hope everybody gets to have some chocolates and enjoy the rest of the evening. We will have questions from the audience as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so and I'll just ask you a few since we're going to run out of time and just want to make sure that other folks can chime in. Our slideshow just went away. Well, maybe it can come back. But anyway, the last slide was the andSons chocolate box, so I thought we would talk about Spirit Bear first.
Okay.
The Spirit Bear. And there he is, the cover model, looking great. Oh, she. Is it, do you have a feeling about...
Yeah, we don't do sexes with
no
the animals.
Yeah.
I guess. But yes, there is a tutu.
There's a tutu, but tutus have no gender.
That's true.
So the bear is, it's one of two of your bears in our collection,
right.
And you've made many others. I wonder what the bear means for you.
Well, everyone has spirit animals, and I have about 20. So I think that for me, the bear is the closest to the subconscious of all the different animals because they hibernate for 9 months out of the year, and indigenous people felt that they were one of the most holy of the animals. And for me, I really try to, I know some people don't like to anthropomorphize animals, but for me, I think it reminds us all that we're one, and we were and are animals ourselves. And so that's why I do a lot of that cross-hybrid work. And then the shield on the front is the spirit girl going into some sort of battle and trying to muster up the strength of a bear. And then the circus, most of my bears wear clothes, tutus or capes, so...
It's dignified that way.
Yeah.
When you say spirit and spirit animal, your anecdote about your early years in Asia and encountering spirit houses and feeling always that the spirit world and the physical world were one. What is the spirit world to you? Because I am also kind of hearing references to lots of different types of belief systems, maybe. And,
I think it sort of have a mishmash of belief systems. And I think, to me, if I were to just pick one, it would be the classic American ghost story: driving down the road, and a spirit walks across you. I'm not a person who actually sees spirits as something I would love to do, but I maybe it's a striving to get to that place where there is no veil, if possible. It would be pretty exciting for me. But in the meantime, I just have my artwork to do it for me.
So speaking of making the artwork, is there a day in the life of Marnie Weber Studio? Is there a typical day, or
they're all so different.
Yeah.
Some days I'm like just swearing at the computer. Just some days they're like actually having fun and making things, and then being bi-coastal now, it's a little bit discombobulating, but I think now that I've got my studio together, I'll be able to. And then also the preparation for the shows takes a lot more time than one would think, and it takes away from studio time. And then the filmmaking, and then the soundtrack, because I do all the soundtracks as well, and so those can take months. And so it almost feels like you're not really getting anywhere, but then ultimately you do have something at the end. So a typical day is going for a walk, and then whatever is the next thing on the agenda. But I don't necessarily like paint every day or, do something with my hands every day. So,
yeah. I mean, probably could have guessed at that answer, given that.
Well, I would like to, believe me. It would be nice. So I've got the next 2 years. I don't have anything scheduled, so I'm just going to work and make new bodies of work.
Do you think that the return of seasons into your life will have an impact?
I think so. It'll be really interesting. Of course, I've already planned to leave during winter, but after spending one winter coming here and working in the studio, but I think that it'll be interesting to see. I've already noticed that the work seems lighter and less heavy, and that could be just being in a less stressful place.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, of course, from the outside, Southern California has this sort of R&R beaches, palm trees reputation,
right.
But we all know living here.
It's a hard place.
It is.
It's a very hard place to live.
Is.
It's a lot of negotiating with traffic and, the booming social life.
Right.
So.
So you were talking about the scores for the films and the production process. At what point does the music come in and become part of the film? Are you thinking about it as you're shooting? Is it at the beginning, in the middle?
It's pretty much always after.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite often it's after. I do the visuals first. And that last one with the cabin was all shot, I should have mentioned, by myself on an iPhone on a tripod. And I gave myself the challenge that nobody would help me. All they could do would be to look in the camera and say if I'm in frame, if there was somebody there. But much of it was shot when I was alone up at the cabin. So it and then when you see the monkey and the woman together, that's a composite that my assistant, Daniel Hawkins, great, my wonderful assistant, put together. And then many of the other scenes, there's mannequins involved. So that, to me, that's really the most personal film I've ever done. It was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it makes sense given that you made it in almost total isolation.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Well, it seems that coronavirus did not dampen your ability to imagine and create.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think for a lot of artists, we did spend a lot of time just staring into space, and maybe the first few months were a relief and not as productive, but then everyone sort of catches up a new steam and gets going again, and so now everybody's hopefully a little more balanced.
Yeah, exactly, and sort of we know what to do when things spike, perhaps, and we don't have to necessarily panic. But
yeah, and I think we've all learned that we have the ability to say no now.
Love it.
Yeah.
So. Saying no feels really good.
Yes.
And so, how is the process different than when you make a record versus scoring a film?
Well, I guess they're more song narratives, and the narratives tend to go with whatever character is being portrayed. So, like, for instance, I do want to do another solo record, but I have to create the character and then create all the cohorts and the other characters that the lead character's with. And so once I get them established, then I can start making the little stories and the lyrics and then putting it all to the music.
So I want to throw it to the audience, and I have so many more questions I want to ask you, but, we'll get together.
And also, if anyone wants to go further diving into my work, there's many, many interviews on my website as well. And if for some reason there's still a question that you don't know the answer to, feel free to email me.
But just 2 quick questions.
Okay.
Hopefully quick. We'll see.
Yeah.
That I can't not ask you. One being the Spirit Girls died during the 1970s, during the in the midst of the male-dominated music industry, right? And they have come back to stake their claim on space. What was the music scene like for you in real life? Los Angeles in the 1980s.
Okay, yeah, because that was it was surprisingly male-dominated. What I've kept finding that I was invited to open for all-male bands like Cafe Lingerie and all these different clubs, and I would be sort of the novelty act, the pony show that came out to lighten the mood, which was fun, and I realized it, and it got harder when I did a tour of the Czech Republic, opening for a Frank Zappa influenced band, and it was that people were just kind of aghast. However, some of the I had to have women come up to me saying that they had never actually seen a woman on stage before.
Wow.
So that was quite amazing, because we did a lot of little small towns. And so I've had a tremendous amount of kind of amazing experiences, and, it's fraught with sexism, but also fraught with women being inspired. So that's wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, finally. For obvious reasons, you haven't done any live performance for a few years. Right,
yeah. I think the last one I did was with my band called F for Fun. That was called F for Fun that night at Bob Baker Marionette Theater, and we were all clowns.
So the question is, when are we going to be able to make our reservations to see you perform next?
Yeah. Well, I'll get together with the band, and we'll have to come up with something, because, again, we can't play unless we have costumes. So that's the rule. And it's more of a collaboration. It's a sort of a noise band collaboration, because there just isn't enough time for people to learn how to play songs. And all those years I was paying my fellow musicians to actually learn my songs. And so now it's fun to just do sort of free noise music in costume.
Nice.
Yeah.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. All right, let's take a couple of questions from the audience. Who has...
Yeah.
Oh, I've got one over there. There's somebody coming around with a microphone so that we can hear.
Hi, Marnie.
Oh, hey, Janet.
How are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm so
Thanks
thrilled.
for coming.
I'm thrilled to be here, and this was fascinating, and I'm just going to ask this for everybody. I know for me, every time I saw a different thing, like the Jack Black event, every single event, I was like, damn, I wasn't there. Damn, I wasn't there. So how do we make sure we don't miss a single other thing that you do?
Oh, thank you. Okay, in the future, for sure, I'm going to. But, yeah, it's...
is there like a mailing list we need to get on, or what can we do to know
I
that
have
we
to
will
get
be
that
in the know?
together for sure. I've been relying more on Instagram and I've been, and social media, but for sure, yeah. But thanks for the question. I will try to get together a mailing list.
I'm not trying to pressure you, but I don't want to miss another thing.
Okay. Oh,
Anything coming up at MOCA?
No.
Well, we'll talk.
Maybe someday. Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, I think we should all go eat some chocolate.
And thank you all
And
again
thank you.
for coming so much. Thank you.